Hello Physical Fiends, it's Jordan here with some Nintendo Switch 2 physical releases. There has been a lot of worry, confusion, rumors and so on, but I am here to try and explain things in the best way possible to the best of my knowledge. This video, you will see all the currently announced physical releases for Nintendo Switch 2. You will see the breakdown of all three varieties of Switch 2 physicals. You know, the proper ones, then the Nintendo Switch 2 editions, what that involves, and finally, the game Key Clownery. I'm also touching on games that you may have seen online via placeholders, and I will discuss their actual credibility with current information, so strap in and get all the information directly to you. Let's start with the games that are proper Nintendo Switch 2 physical releases, games that are properly on the cartridges. Mario Kart World, the game that made people's heads explode, not because of how awesome it is, but because people thought it would cost $90 for a physical. But no, it's a paltry $80. That's crazy, Nintendo have been sniffing something fun with that one. But the footage I've seen during the Treehouse livestream, it looks really solid. Will it be as scientifically perfect as Mario Kart 8? Maybe not, this looks a bit loosey-goosey, but that's a sacrifice to the giant open world. I didn't see much of that, but I think Nintendo must have something up their sleeve alongside the bag of something they're trying to hide from the police. This is a launch title, of course. Donkey Kong Bananza. Let's face it, this must have been a Wario game before Nintendo saw how popular DK was in the Mario movie. What's all this about DK being a greedy bugger for gold? Bananas, sure. Gold, I don't know. I'm sure this is going to be a fantastic game since it's obviously made by the same people as Mario Odyssey, but so far I need to see more than just punching endless amounts of mountains and floors. Hopefully there's some good structure to it, unlike the things that DK is actually destroying. And this is releasing on July 17th. Also, as you are probably aware, pre-orders of these games and the console itself are not opening in the US for the time being. I'm not even going to pretend to understand what's going on with tariffs and stuff because my head is already too full of things like physical releases, beer, Mila Jovovich. I don't have space left to comprehend world economics, okay? However, in the UK, things are go, 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 and I would like to announce, finally, I have a support option for my UK brethrens who don't want to purchase from VGP and want a local release. So, UK people, you can pre-order Nintendo Switch 2 titles, many of which are in this video, in their UK form with the link down below in the description and pinned comment. I am partnering with shop2.net, a website I used to use almost exclusively when I was living in the UK, and a purchase via that link, well, I'm not going to say massively helps support me because that would be a lie, like VGP massively supports me, but Shop2 would be a mild bonus, shall we say. If you can still use VGP, that would be fantastic, but if not, shop2.net is a good option. Thank you. You can pre-order your Switch 2 stuff down below, in the UK obviously. So, what else have we got? Daemon X Machina, Titanic Scion. Hopefully this won't sink as badly as the first game. Alright, that wasn't a flop, but it did come and go without much fuss as it probably could have. More mech action, more customization, more over-the-top goodness, and hopefully some of the rougher edges smoothed out. This is releasing on the 5th of September as a proper cartridge. It's also appearing on Xbox Series and PlayStation 5, and it'll be fun to see how the Switch 2 edition compares to those two. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition is a big release, not just in terms of the size of the game, but as a potential hero to Nintendo Switch 2 collectors, since despite being a third-party release and being quite an old game by this point, CD Projekt Red are determined to give us a proper cartridge release of it. It includes the base game as well as the expansion content together, and I really hope it is a success because it will send a message to publishers that we want them to make the effort for a proper physical release like this one. This will be a launch title and it'll be compacted nicely and tightly on a 64GB cartridge. Alright, that's all we have as for certain known proper physicals with release dates. However, there are other physical releases that have been confirmed but the date isn't known as of yet, nor the full capacity of the physical release, but we can be quietly confident, okay? Kirby Air Riders, I'm pretty sure this is going to be just as fun as Mario Kart World, if not even more, because Sakurai knows how to create mini games that often outshine the main event. The original Kirby Air Ride is a real curiosity. I don't think anyone would outright say it's a great game, but it is a game that you can easily fall in love with. And I think drawing from it the experience, he can create something great and lovable now. Hopefully packed with content, and hopefully enough to separate itself from Mario Kart, since they're releasing in the same year, within 6 months. We don't know for sure, but this is highly unlikely to be a game key. I'm pretty sure it will be a proper physical release. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is releasing sometime this winter. Again, the full details of the physical are currently not fully known, but once again, as a Nintendo published title, I am 99% sure it will be a proper cartridge. This is the third game in the series, and this sounds even darker than the other ones. Apparently it's the first game in the series that's actually going to be properly canon, which reminds me that there are people on this earth who for some reason care that Zelda has a timeline. Stop making it extra nerdy, okay? Alright, next up we are delving into the confusing world of Nintendo Switch 2 editions. The type of release that has caused much chaos, much rumors, much engagement farming online, but here I am to explain it to you. Of these, the current status of all the known ones is thus, okay? Just as an example, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 edition. Firstly, yes, it means that on the market there is also a Nintendo Switch 1 physical out there, okay? But more importantly, this Nintendo Switch 2 edition, it is still a proper cartridge, okay? There is no download. Everything, aside from any, potential patches or maybe future DLC, all the current content is on the cartridge. Inside the box is a Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge. It'll be a little red ugly thing. However, the data on the cartridge for the main game is a Nintendo Switch 1 game. It's not a bespoke port, okay? It's a Switch 1 game on a Switch 2 cartridge, and it will be incompatible with the Nintendo Switch 1 console. You can only play it on Nintendo Switch 2 as it will be emulated there. Hopefully very well. However, it also includes the data for the Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade pack, again, on the cartridge. The wording on the packaging did cause panic because it is not explicit, and then there's the upgrade pack can be purchased separately wording. However, this is a warning of sorts to Switch 1 owners of Breath of the Wild, meaning if you already own Breath of the Wild on Switch 1, you do not need to purchase this specific physical product in order to access the Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade features. You can use your Switch 1 copy and purchase the upgrade pack separately as a download, okay? And this is exactly what I predicted. It is awkwardly worded and could be clearer, but that is what's happening with these Nintendo Switch 2 editions. Now, of course, this is the current trend. It is entirely possible third-party publishers may go rogue, they may have some other way of dealing with this, but the ones we currently know of, you don't need to worry. They are proper physical releases. However, something that is instantly unappealing about the Switch 2 edition of this particular game, Breath of the Wild, is that it does not include the expansion content that came out on the Switch 1, kind of like the DLC. That is just weirdly weird, okay? However, it does have better frame rates, resolution, faster load times, and access to Zelda Notes, which is going to be accessible on Nintendo's mobile app, as though anyone will actually use that. So, that's Breath of the Wild. What other Nintendo Switch 2 editions are we gonna have? Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Nintendo Switch 2 edition. Again, very similar. However, it does not have the embarrassment of missing expansion content because it never got any. It has the same perks as Breath of the Wild, frame rate, Zelda app, that sort of thing, and both of these will be launch titles. Now, I'm not much of a speculator personally, it's not why I collect games, but I do think that due to the sheer amount of people who already own both Zeldas on Switch 1, I don't think these Switch 2 physicals will be especially numerous. I mean, they can't assume like 10 million people will buy the same game again, like the physical cartridge again, for only a minor upgrade on a cartridge, right? I think that these two physicals might be tough to get a hold of in the future. Maybe. Don't quote me on that, okay? Metroid Prime 4 Beyond Nintendo Switch 2 edition. I think this will be the other way around. I think there will be fewer Switch 1 versions out there, just a guess on my part again, but I think that this one is definitely a step up compared to the Switch 1 version due to the increase in visual quality as well as the mouse control option. Seems like an easy choice, and the game looks fantastic. Great world building, fun mechanics, new psychic powers. We don't know when this will release as there is no set date, but it will be this year, according to Nintendo. Super Mario Jamboree plus Jamboree TV. This improves on the original game by including support for the mouse and microphone, which are on the Nintendo Switch 2 console already, but it also has support for the Switch 2 camera, which is sold separately, although it is not 100% required. However, some games do need it. It's basically the iToy. They've brought back the iToy in 2025, and it looks equally awful in terms of playability, probably really fun, like if you're absolutely drunk, but, you know, sober Jordan is not thinking of purchasing this. It is releasing July 24th. Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star Cross World is a launch title for the Switch 2. Here you get the magnificent Forgotten Land looking even more fabulous and at even more frames per second, but there's also Star Cross World, which is a new story content thing, and hopefully a nice chunk of it too. I'm sure my daughter would love to jump in with me and play the new stuff since it was the first game we completed together. So this game does hold a special place in my heart. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, pre-orders for the Switch 1 physical opened ages ago. That has a standard edition as well as a collector's edition, but the Nintendo Switch 2 physical edition is only standard. It's about $15 more expensive than the Switch 1 cartridge, probably due to reasons I explained in one of my videos about expensive cartridge size, and there is no mention of what is so special about this version. But we do know it's a proper cartridge, okay? There's no download required. Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar is another of Marvelous games that has a Switch 1 edition, but this includes the Switch 1 game on the Switch 2 cartridge, plus the bonus content which I don't believe has been detailed at the time of me making this video. I struggle to think of what it could be outside of looking slightly prettier and having a better frame rate, but will it be worth the $10 extra? Who knows? Pokemon Legends Z2A it's gonna be a miracle on Switch 2. We all know what the inflated price is gonna be for, okay? Because this is gonna be a modern Pokemon game running at 60 frames per second. Oh boy. There is no release date for this as of yet, but as the first Pokemon game on the Switch 2, it's gonna be mildly exciting. Tamagotchi Plaza is getting a physical release in Japan, it seems, as a Nintendo Switch 2 edition. And it does appear to be a proper cartridge version as well. I don't want to say 100%, but the translation seems to indicate it will be. There is also a Switch 1 edition too, but the Switch 2 edition will give you 3 additional stores to visit. Woohoo! There's no mention of a Western physical, even for the Switch 1. So I do think it's possible though, because it's Bandai. You know, it's probably 50-50. Alright, next up we're going into the third kind of physical release for the Nintendo Switch 2, what I'm calling Game Key Clownery. These are games that have a cartridge, but there is nothing on the cartridge aside from a key that will allow you to download the game to your Switch 2 system. These are not true physicals, but as far as we know, you should be able to sell them on and can be multi-use, but you always need to have the cartridge inserted to use them. In my opinion, it is a step up from code in a box BS, but the worrying thing is, you know, how many games are going to use this method? Well, here are the ones so far. Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster is getting a game key release. This was a JRPG on the 3DS, a game I really enjoyed, although it did kind of mess the bed near the end, which many people found unforgivable. I do wonder if they've adjusted the ending game flow in this one. They'd be crazy not to. Anyways, this game key has an 11 GB download needed, and this is a launch title. Street Fighter 6 Year 1 to 2. Oh, hello Capcom and your desire to make crap physical releases. Anyways, this is a complete version of the game. At the time, you know, I don't get these Street Fighter season passes and stuff like that, but either way, at the time of release, it will be like complete, but I'm sure there will be more content to milk after this release. I saw some general opinions saying that this looks like it might be a very good version of Street Fighter 6, and it will also be a launch title, and there will be a 50 GB download. Can't wait for that to take 2 weeks for me to download. Not that I'm buying it, I don't even like Street Fighter. No sleep for KANAME Date. Is it Date or Date? I can't remember. from the SOMNIUM Files, the latest game in the series, detective, mystery, narrative, heavy adventure games, very well loved, but what is not loved is a game key. That sucks, especially since the Nintendo Switch 1 version is a proper cartridge, so you might as well buy that version instead, because then at least you've got something tangible, you actually own it. It's the same price, although there is no mention as if you'll get like boosted graphics with the Switch 1 cartridge in your Switch 2. Is there a free upgrade? Who knows? Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, is digital only in the West, but Japan is getting a Game Key edition of it. It's a launch title for the system and it does look great, but just a shame about the Game Key. It will require a 12GB download. Shine Post Be Your Idol is gonna be a launch title in Japan, but the physical release is a game key. It looks like a management type of game, probably kind of fun, but there's no mention of languages if you were thinking of importing. Survival Kids is another launch title from KONAME, but also another game key. This popped up in the direct, and it's when the audio was completely messed up, so I complained about seeing a crappy indie game while I could hear Final Fantasy VII music. Like, you just can't do that to me. But who knew? It was a Survival Kids game. I mean, it does look like crap, sorry, but it really does. And that's despite me always being interested in the series. Like, I wanted to play some of the Game Boy games because it looks really interesting and ambitious, but I think I'm going to take a pass on this. Nobunaga's Ambition Rebirth with Power Up Kit Complete Edition is getting a Game Key Edition in Japan. Probably will not have English, and the West seems to be digital only. This includes the main game alongside some new scenarios and mouse support. Now, before we go into the final section, where I'm going to do a little roundup of the rumored, the placeholder ones, okay? Before we get to that, if you enjoy the kind of clarity I provided to you so far, and you are interested in Nintendo Switch 2 physical games in the future, be sure to make sure you are subscribed if you're not already. It will be the best thing you do today, plus you'll be helping this channel grow, and the bigger it is, I think more publishers will pay attention to the demand for physical media and maybe produce proper physicals. Like, imagine if this channel had 100,000 subscribers, like if Bandai saw that or Konami saw that, they would think, hey, you know what, maybe we should make a physical release. So, do your bit and subscribe. Okay, now for the final section. I do like clarity. I like to be as 100% factually as possible. However, at the moment, there is a lot of mystery. And in this next section, I'm going to go into games that have placeholders for games that are either probably gonna get a physical release, but I don't feel like it's 100% nailed on with the current information, or we just don't know what kind of capacity the physical release is gonna be. Will it be a proper one? Will it be a game key? Who knows? So let's have a quick look, okay? Like, for example, PlayAsia, they say that Elden Ring Tarnished Edition will be a game key release in Asia and Japan. Will it? Maybe, but I think it's still too early to say. Split Fiction may be getting a physical release, but it is unknown if it's a proper cartridge or a game key. I'm also very skeptical about this one. Yakuza 0 Director's Cut is getting a physical release in Japan. It should have English. It is unknown if it is a proper cartridge or a game key. In the West, the website for this game does mention a physical release, but again, it's not stated as to what kind of physical release. Definitely want to keep an eye on though, okay? And I will be sure to keep you updated when more info comes to light. Puyo Tetris 2S. Sega have said there is going to be a physical release for this in the West. They mention it on their website, but again, no details about if it's a proper physical or a game key. Wild Hearts S is stated to be digital only in the West. However, PlayAsia have a placeholder for a Japanese physical release, which, if it is real, it probably won't have English anyways. Shadow Labyrinth has a placeholder for a physical in Japan, but personally, I have not seen any solid evidence of it aside from this random placeholder. Sid Meier's Civilization 7 Nintendo Switch 2 Edition has a placeholder for Japan. There is no indication as to if it's a game key or proper cartridge. However, the naming would suggest to me that it's a bit like the other Nintendo Switch 2 Edition titles. Maybe it's fully on the cartridge, but we'll have to see. The Dusk Bloods is a big title for the Switch 2, so one would imagine the placeholder for the physical edition is likely to be correct, but in what capacity? We will have to wait and see closer to release next year. Obake Doro 2 Chase and Seek, there's a Japanese placeholder that's popped up, but details are extremely thin. This looks like pure guesswork from Play Asia. East 10 Proud Nordics, there is a Japanese placeholder for this. It won't have English, I'm sure, if it is real, but at least the game has been announced for the Switch 2 system. RAIDOU Remastered has a Japanese placeholder. However, I'm having my doubts so far since the website for the game neglects the Nintendo Switch 2 when it comes to detailing the physical release. They could be late to update it, of course, or maybe they're waiting to announce it properly, but I would not consider it a given. There was also a listing for Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster on Nintendo Switch 2, which I actually pre-ordered, but that was later changed to a game key rather than a proper physical. And then after that, the listing was deleted altogether, so who knows at this point. Alright, that's all the info. Are you infoed out? If it was useful and you're new, subscribe, okay? I will continue to be useful in the future, I promise you. If you want to support me, please use the purchase links down below in the description and pinned comment. Not necessarily for these games, but games in general, okay? And I do thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's the best way to support me. And yeah, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Take care.